And I thought like, okay, this is some place that I really like the island I love the vibe, I love the diving. So somehow I'm going to make it my mission to come back.
Off-Gassing, a scuba podcast with host Nick Hogel. Naomi Allen would earn her first scuba certification on the island of Koh Tao in Thailand, an island that would eventually become her home, a place where she would develop into an explorer. It was great to sit down and chat with Naomi about her development with Koh Tao Divers, the simplicity and sturdiness of the KISS Sidewinder, exploring the unexplored with Bottomline Projects, turning her future vision into a reality, and much more. Please enjoy. Naomi, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great, Nick. Thank you so much for asking. I'm just fresh off the boat. I've just got home and I'm really excited to be here. So thanks for having me on the podcast. It's great.
No, thank you for joining. So you were working all day today?
Yeah, I'm actually back to basics teaching an open water course right now.
Okay, cool. I'm excited to hear a little bit more about that. Well, I usually start with my first question. Tell me how and why you got into scuba, but where are you from originally?
I'm from the UK. I've been living actually now in Thailand, Koh Tao, Thailand for 7 years. And I used to actually teach English online to Chinese and Japanese kids. And I adopted this weird kind of Americanism in my accent. So people always get quite confused about where I'm from because it never really went away. So I get Dutch, South African, Australian, but I am 100% British, actually.
Okay. Yeah. That's quite funny. Well, let me we'll dive a little bit more into that, but let me throw out my first question for you. Tell me how and why you got. Well, I'm sorry. Let me back up a second. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for joining. I really appreciate it. I'm getting ahead of myself over here. Thank you very much for joining the podcast. And my first question I always like to throw out is, tell me how and why you became a scuba diver. Tell me about that first breath underwater. Was it love at first breath? Was it, I absolutely hate this? Was it, I think I can do this again? Tell me all about it.
So my first breaths underwater, I think, was when I was maybe 8, earliest possible time you can kind of officially try scuba diving. I did a discovery dive with my father, some Spanish island, I think Mallorca or something like that. It's funny, it's not really a memorable experience. It was just one of those things my dad was a diver and he wanted me to try it, of course. And I remember they didn't tell me really how to equalize, or they didn't weight me properly. They didn't explain anything about breathing. And I was just all the time just being dragged down from the surface. That's pretty much all I can remember about that. The next time was when I was traveling. It was in 2015. I was on just a holiday in Thailand for 1 month. And we came to Koh Tao and we didn't really know what we were going to do here. We didn't do much research. We were just kind of island hopping and planning kind of as you go. And we got to Koh Tao. We're like, okay, what is there to do here? There's partying or scuba diving. We did a little bit of both. Partying, I think, came first. Then we did some scuba diving. And then I did open water and advanced back to back. And then I remember at the end of that trip, it sounds really, really cheesy and corny, but I was sitting on the beach of Koh Tao, waiting for my ferry to leave. And I was super, super upset, crying, no, I don't want to leave here. And I thought okay, this is some place that I really like the island I love the vibe, I love the diving. So somehow I'm going to make it my mission to come back. So I went home to England for 3 years, and I was working, studying, and earning a bit of money. And then in 2018, I came back out here as an English teacher so that I could kind of live in the country and earn some money at the same time, and then travel backwards and forwards from the island, doing the rescue and the dive master. And then finally the instructor came in 2020. I was a COVID baby instructor.
Oh, okay. So just a quick question. So when you were leaving Koh Tao, the sad memory was that you were leaving Thailand and heading back home, or were you headed off to some other places in Thailand?
No, we were going home. Like we were supposed to go from Koh Tao to Phuket, but then we cancelled our trip to Phuket and we stayed in Koh Tao. It's the cliche of Koh Tao. Everyone comes for 3 days and then it's like, well, I just cancel my trip and I stay here for 5 years, or 7 in my case. But yeah, I did exactly that. And then I was like, yeah, I can come back here. I can see myself here. And yeah, that's what I did.
Awesome. So I am sad to say that I have not been to Koh Tao. My first breaths under the water were actually in Thailand, but it was on Koh Phi Phi, and kind of the same thing. I was just backpacking around. I didn't really know much, and just usually I feel like if you're on an island in Thailand, it's just like you're saying, you're either partying or you're scuba diving.
Yes.
And I want to say that I know there's like Koh Samui and Koh Phangan.
Yeah.
And I want to say the parties are quite legendary in Koh Tao, I've heard. So
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a pretty good time. And so you did that first trip, you went back home, you knew you were going to come back. Tell me about making it back. Was it like had it in your mind definitely going back? Was it kind of a little bit back and forth as you were back home? Because I know like once you kind of get away from the island and real life sort of kicks in, it's kind of hard to see yourself back in that place, but you were determined to get back to Koh Tao?
I was 100% determined, but I will be honest and say it was not an easy road. Like I had a lot of struggles in between. Like I had addiction problems and like all kinds of family drama, and like it very almost like didn't happen. Actually, I very almost just threw in the towel and just succumbed to my drama in England. But it came to a point where I was like, I have to make this decision. Like I have to go or I'm going to die here. Like miserable. So it was a tough decision. It was a tough first move, but yeah, I haven't looked back since. Like I'm so happy that I did make that very difficult decision. It was not easy at all. Yeah, no, it was not a straightforward, just I'm determined to move to Thailand. Like I really worked hard. I studied a lot. Like I did my like English teacher, like the TEFL, the teaching English as a foreign language. I did that as a way of kind of motivating me. Like I paid the money to do that. And then that motivated me to help to actually like push forward on what I wanted to do. Okay. But yeah, it wasn't straightforward.
Well, no, that's I'm happy to hear that you overcame the problems, I should say, because that's not an easy thing, especially when you're at home. It's very easy to kind of fall into the comfort of your surroundings and to be able to break out, because it's moving across the world is not an easy task. It's definitely seems like it is like, oh, I'll just go. And maybe for some people it is, but I know for me, it was not like, okay, let's just pack up the bags and go. It's like, okay, I'm a little bit older. I need to plan it a little bit better. If I was in my early 20s, it might have been a different story. So I'm actually a little bit curious about the teaching English, because I went down that road. I actually I did a TEFL program. I did not complete it though, and I'm kind of sad. I definitely want to get back to it. I needed to do, I think it was like a 25-hour internship at the end of it, which I never got around to doing. But tell me about that. Did you enjoy it? And obviously you said you kind of picked up a little bit of an accent doing that. But tell me a little bit more about that. Are you still doing that, or side work, or just?
No, I've stopped it now, but it was 100% an amazing thing that I did. Like I joined with a company that kind of placed teachers out in the middle of nowhere, which was horrifying. I was teamed up with like 3 other people. So like 3 other farang, as we're called in Thai. Like it actually means guava, like guava is like super white. Farang, white people. I was with 3 others, and we went out to the middle of the countryside, like completely rural Thailand, like not a single other farang in the town. Thank God we had each other. The first night out for dinner was interesting. It was like Thai menu, I have this. But we settled in, and I actually worked in a school there for 1 year, which was super nice. I was teaching 7 and 8-year-olds, and then also 13, 14-year-olds.
What part of Thailand?
So it was near Nakhon Pathom, which is like just kind of west of Bangkok. It was like an hour away from Bangkok.
Okay. And I'm assuming when you made that move, was And you'd obviously traveled around a little bit before, but that was the first time kind of, okay, I'm moving out of everything I know, going to the middle of nowhere.
We got this like minibus out from Bangkok, and we're just gradually getting into more and more like less civilization. We're all looking at each other like, oh my gosh, like where are we going? But you know what? It was great. Like it forced me to learn Thai. I probably wouldn't have learned Thai any other way. Like I can't really speak fluent Thai, but I learned enough to get by. There was no other choice. It really like ingrained me in the culture. Like I learned a lot about culture, about the religions and all of that kind of stuff, which now I live in Koh Tao. It's basically like someplace in Europe or the States. Like it's very, very westernized here. But being in the rural Thailand was really, really awesome. Then I started teaching online as well, like as a side job. And that's where I developed the accent. Teaching online, like people would struggle to understand my accent in the British accent. So I started to like roll the R, you know, like in an American way. And they suddenly understood me. I'm like, okay, this is easier. And then it just stuck.
Oh, that's funny. I do get slightly confused a little bit sometimes because the British, not grammar, but the British spelling is a little bit different than the American spelling sometimes. So
yes.
When I moved here, like the spell check would be British, and then it makes me like second guess myself. I'm like, oh, am I spelling things right? Because it might be like instead of an O, there's an OU or something like that. Just some yes. random things. But so after you finished teaching, I'm assuming like while you were teaching, you kind of knew I need to get back to scuba diving. Can you tell me a little bit about your progression from you had the open water and the advanced, talk about, I guess, like the advanced to the rescue into the instructor course. And a follow-up question I would have with that is, being a teacher of the English language or just a teacher in general, did that help transition you into the instruction side of scuba diving? Because I'm sure there's some crossover there.
For sure. So when I came back, I had a full-time teaching job, and then I was kind of using every opportunity possible. Like every long weekend and every vacation, I would get the night bus from Bangkok down to Chumphon, and then the morning ferry. And I could basically stay whenever there was a 3-day weekend. I could stay for a day and one night in Koh Tao. And I would do that as often as I could. And I would like pre-book my dives, just like fun dives, you know, to get the dive number like up. And I would go as often as I could. And then anytime there was a break, like spring break or Christmas or whatever, I would organize with the dive school, like, okay, I'm coming for this amount of weeks. Can I do this, 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 this? So then I went and did my rescue, and I signed up for the dive master course right away. But it took me more than 1 year to actually finish my dive master, because I was coming and going and coming and going. So It kind of wasn't a traditional, like, you know, 3 or 4 months of like doing it solid. So it was kind of weird in a way, but there was no other way I could do it really. And I wanted to progress kind of fast so that when I was done with my teaching, like I could then go back and just finish it off and then start working as soon as possible.
How did you like transitioning into the professional side? Okay, it's like I'm fun diving for myself. Okay, now I've taken on the responsibility of other divers. How was that transition for you?
I found it super nice. I was lucky enough right away when I certified as a dive master. The shop that I was working, they had like a full-time DM team, which consisted of both dive masters and instructors, but they were basically like the core staff. So we did office, we did like boat mastering, we did land duties like cleaning the equipment room, and it was kind of like the grunt work, you know, and also taking fun divers around. But I got a job like right away as full-time staff, and that was pretty much right after I graduated. So I learned a lot really, really fast. So that was awesome. But then that was exactly at March 2020, where I'm sure you can remember what happened then. Everything kind of fell apart over there. So I was like signed up to do my instructor like in February or something, but it got cancelled. But then I managed to do it actually in May, I think, May 2020. Because during that time, our islands, it shut down, like the walls of it shut down. So there was no comings and goings. So we did like a 2-week quarantine. And then actually, because there was no new people coming, like we were kind of business as usual. So everything was open, everything was running normally. The only thing we weren't allowed was to be in classrooms with air conditioning.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know anything about Thailand weather, but in April, May, it's like the hottest time of the year, like 40 degrees. And I'm there trying to do my IDC. Like in an outdoor classroom with like 5 fans pointed at my face and listening to some person talking for 8 hours and trying to make sense of it all. It was horrible. And we weren't allowed swimming pools either, so we did everything in the ocean, like all of the confine, all of that stuff. The first time I went into a pool was for my actual examination, which was weird.
Oh, wow. So I'm assuming you did the IE, obviously the IDC on Koh Tao and the IE on Koh Tao as well?
Yeah. And they just opened the swimming pools like right at the end of my IDC. So we were allowed to go in the pool for the exam. Okay. Which was great. It was like a luxury then, you know.
Yes, no, I've been to the Thailand area during the April year, and I mean, to be honest too, it could be quite fun. Obviously, Songkran's a big party kind of all over, and but yeah, it does get very, very warm, so I couldn't even imagine that. Yeah, during COVID, I was gonna ask how everything kind of went down there, because I know it was pretty rough I guess I don't want to say rough for everybody, because I know some people were just like, oh, I was just hanging out on an island the whole time. But as far as work went, I mean, traveling went to pretty much zero. So the business might have been quite slow, I'm assuming. But no, that's awesome. And the shop that you were doing your courses with, was it the same shop from your open water up through your dive master, or was it different shops?
Yeah, so I did open water all the way through to my entry-level instructors at Crystal Dive in Koh Tao. And it was in 2020, like during that time, where I shifted my shop because, well, obviously there was not much work happening. And it was quite good in a way. Like the government did quite a good job of like extending the visas, like emergency visas for everyone that kind of couldn't leave. So there was quite a lot of people still hanging around on the island. So there was enough kind of stuff going on. But yeah, it was pretty slow. But like there were still boats going out, we were still diving, so that was pretty nice. But that was when I first kind of like I can't just like sit on my hands. I get bored pretty fast, and I want to always like be doing something. If it's not working, then I want to be training myself. So that was when I first went into Koh Tao Divers to start technical diving. Like in October, I think October 2020 is when I first stepped in that shop, and then pretty much haven't left since then.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question is, obviously Koh Tao Divers, but tell me about the transition into technical. So I feel like it's kind of a natural progression. Not everybody, but once you start diving quite a bit more, you're like, oh, okay, what's this technical diving thing? And then obviously you got into the overhead environment. Can you tell me kind of what drew you to that sort of diving?
To begin with, like I said, I just wanted something else to do. Like it doesn't sound like I always had this passion. Like I think I always did, but I didn't discover it right away. I was just like, I want to do something different. So I went in and I met Ivan Karadzic, who was at Koh Tao Divers at the time. He was one of the divers also involved in the Tham Luang cave rescue. So I was pretty excited to meet him like right away. And he then became my first, well, he taught me many courses actually, but he gave me my first tech course. He then gave me my first overhead course as well. And then he eventually became my tech instructor trainer as well. So I did a lot with him, like initially. I loved the shop. Like I loved the different atmosphere in the shop itself. I trained initially with him, and then he left Koh Tao Divers and went to another place. And then in 2021, Mikko arrived, just waltzed into the shop, and I was like immediately like drawn to his energy. And I didn't know too much about him, but as we kind of sat and chatted a little bit, like I was just really enthused by him and I wanted to hang around with him. So I think the energy of the people around me kind of really sparked the passion, to be honest, of technical diving. I always like kind of not dangerous things, but I like to know that I'm kind of pushing my own limits in a way. So yeah, that's how I first started technical diving. It's just a never-ending slope now.
Yeah. It is. It's it really, that's the understatement of the century. No, for sure. I kind of the same thing. Like I'm just a baby technical diver. I've done like a couple of courses, and I haven't gotten as much in-field experience as I would like. I'm hoping to kind of change that up a little bit more this year into next year. I mean, just kind of like anything, it's a never-ending black hole. So there's always, I mean, there pretty much there's always time, but for me, it was a slow progression into it. And I was like, okay, I'll try this. Ooh, this is a little bit more exciting. Let's try this. And I feel like it's the it's either the carrot or the stick, or what that's saying, the carrot or the stick, but it's the never ending carrot that you're always just trying to grab. Like, oh, what is this? This is exciting.
Yeah, exactly. I did one course and it was like, okay, what's next? What's next? Yeah.
So I know I've talked to a couple people a little bit about the caves in Thailand. Can you tell me kind of a little bit about the cave overhead environment in the Thailand area?
Yeah, so they're dark in the way that they're kind of famously not that great in terms of visibility. So dark. They're super cool though. Like, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that there are fantastic cave formations everywhere. Like, that's just simply not true. But the caves themselves I find really interesting. And the most interesting part about them is that they just go super deep, super fast. So actually training in them is quite tricky. Like, I did cavern through to full cave, and it was a challenge, like, because they just drop off to hundreds of meters. And they're kind of like these tunnel formations that they just go down like to insane depths. Some of them are like more shallow. There's this one super nice shallow cave called Spider Cave. It's currently closed because it's in a national park. Maybe getting reopened again soon, so that's exciting. We have a couple of guys actually going up to map it to hopefully help to get that cave reopened again.
Why is it closed down? Just because the government doesn't want it open, or?
They closed all cave diving in national parks because in this area called Koh Tao, there's many caves there. And a few years ago, a couple of Russian, I think there was a few deaths in that area. And then they just decided to close all of the cave diving in national parks. And this cave sits in a national park, but hopefully there's talk of it getting reopened again.
So I know, and obviously this is going to lead up to the Bottomline Projects, correct? Yeah, the Bottomline Project and your involvement with them. But can you tell me a little bit? So I know there's obviously caves, there's mines. Can you tell me a little bit of the differences between the caves and the mines? And in Thailand, is there more mines than caves?
Tricky question about if there's more mines than caves, because we're just kind of discovering the mines, but we're also discovering new caves. So it's hard to say. I think as far as we know, I would say there's more caves than mines. But as the years go by, we're getting more and more information about more mines that have been abandoned. So I think it might end up evening out eventually, but I don't know what we have more of. But I think the main difference is, especially in the mines that I've been involved with diving, is the scale of them. They're mind-bogglingly huge, the mines that I've been in. And the cave systems, they go deep and they connect, but I haven't been able to go to 170 meters to kind of see actually how deep they go and how they connect. But in the mines, I've been able to dive a significant amount, like, of the actual space. And it really blows your mind. Like, the size of the place is insane. And also the differences in the kind of geography of it, like the structures that you see in there, like caves is all natural formation. So there's just kind of rocks and the speleotherms and everything. But with the mines, it's kind of they're more like square tunnels with some machinery. And then you have every now and again, there's like a collapse. I find it interesting, like, to kind of dive around there trying to answer the questions of who was actually in here, because that's the big difference, right? There was actually people working in there when it was dry versus a cave, which has been flooded for however many years. And you sometimes see the size of some of the chambers that we go into in the mines, and they're like 40, 50 meters high by 40, 50 meters wide. And there's like tunnels in the ceiling, and it's like, I just like scratch my head, like, how do they do that? And then we know that they made a lot of the tunnels with dynamite, but then you see some of the tunnels like 50 meters off the ground, and you're like asking yourself, how were people actually up in that tunnel mining this stuff? And I find it super interesting. So like the history aspect of the mines makes it kind of a little bit more interesting to me, the man-made aspect of it.
Do you know what most of the mines are they mining for? What are they mining for usually while they're open before they close them down?
Yeah, the biggest ones that we have, they're all heavy metal mines that we've heard of. We do try to make it a priority. We always come in with like a syringe and we do the water tests. to make sure that there's nothing dangerous. Like a lot of them were mining lead and stuff like this, so it's a little bit risky to be diving around in lead water, lead poisoning and everything. But we do make it a priority to always test the water. Like before we go in, we've been testing from different areas as well, like not from the water, but from like the walls and the silt deposits and stuff, like to make sure there's nothing super dangerous. We haven't had any alarming results so far, like to say that we shouldn't be diving in these waters. Sometimes there's a little bit of like,
it's right on the fence.
Yeah, like, but not even on the fence. Like it's just, there's a little bit of something showing and it's like, it's not enough to be dangerous. Hopefully. We'll see. Yeah. We're all still alive, so.
Yeah, that's a plus. That's a plus. So I'm about to ask a really dumb question, so I apologize, because I'm still kind of new. I just became full cave certified last year, almost actually about a year ago. Well, I started my training pretty much about a year ago. So obviously, like a place like Mexico, all the most of the caves or the caves that you're going to go diving in, they start kind of, you can almost pull up and park to the cave, right? Like you can almost pretty much pull up, unload your gear, jump right in. I'm assuming with Thailand, because I'm kind of thinking like of Malaysia too, or even Indonesia. Well, I guess depending on where you go in Indonesia, you have to go quite deep to hit the water level. So are the caves like that in Thailand, to where you kind of have to trek quite deep before you hit the water level, or are they kind of starting right at the not sea level? That's not the right term for it, but
yeah, no, I know what you mean. Most of them are pretty much, the water is at ground level. The mines are slightly different. Like the caves, most of the water is at sea level. Yeah, so you don't have to really go down anywhere. One of the mines, one of the first ones that we went to in 2022. It was my first expedition. I was brand new, first mission with Bottomline Projects, and it was the first mine that we showed up to. We had to walk like 500 meters down this spiral driveway thing. So that was rough, like carrying all the equipment down 500 meters. Going down was easier than coming up, mind you. But generally speaking, like, yeah, it's not that much of a mission. Like the entries, as far as cave diving and mine diving go, like they're pretty straightforward. It's not like we're trekking into the jungle, like kilometers of hikes and like abseiling and single rope technique. Like, no, we don't need any of that here. I would love to do that kind of stuff, but we don't really need it here. Not that I've discovered so far anyways.
Okay. And the mines, so I don't know, so I guess that's why I'm asking. I right now I'm going to assume that they're private property owned by a person rather than the government, or is that not true? Is it government owned? And when you find a mine that you want to explore, who do you seek the permission from?
Yeah, some of them are privately owned and some of them are not. Some of them are government owned, I believe. The ones we dive in most are privately owned. So we seek permission from the owners and stuff. There is a lot of always politics and bureaucracy about mostly like who gets the money and how do we organize the safety and all of this stuff. There's a lot of red tape usually going around it, but normally it's privately owned land. That goes for the mines, yeah. I think the caves are similar. When we find a mark like to explore, sometimes we adopt the policy of like ask for forgiveness, not permission. Because it can be super complicated. It's not that we want to like break the rules or anything, but sometimes it can be really complicated to navigate all of the correct people and the permits. So now we have permits to dive everywhere that we dive. Yeah, we're not doing anything like against the rules now, but sometimes when we just go for the first like checkout, maybe slightly under the table. Yeah. But then, of course, we always make it our mission to get like above board and seek the proper permission and make sure everyone's happy before we actually start properly exploring and opening it up for people, obviously, because it's not just us, it's, the safety aspect and everyone's name's on the line if something goes wrong. So yeah, we make sure everything is done above board for sure.
I'm always kind of curious about that, just because it's like, you have this place in the middle of nowhere and, you see a potential lead, but then it's like, who or how do you follow up to even find out who's the owner? I mean, I guess obviously speaking the language helps quite a bit, because then you start talking to the locals and figure things out. Has the team ever received any pushback? Like, no, we don't want you here. It's too dangerous. Or what's the reception usually from the people that own it?
It's not necessarily pushback, but yeah, we do get told no. And then we have to kind of argue a little bit. And to be honest, like in Thailand, if you're told no, then it's no. Like you can't argue with it. Yeah. But we do always then try and come with, this isn't just for us. It's not just for our fun and games. Like we want to, we try to bring in like local tourism, for example, and, try to bring the local areas a bit of funding. We then try to make sure everything in terms of like safety and organization is like on point so that there's not going to be any backlash, like if something goes wrong. So like pushback sometimes, but it's always it's a healthy debate between like what we want to do and what they want. And we have to kind of make it beneficial for everyone. So it's a good thing with the Kanchanaburi mines, like we've generated quite a lot of local tourism from that. A lot of Thai people actually travel up to those mines to see where we dive, and they run local tours, like driving trucks through the whole mines, like kilometers of tunnels. And that was a thing before we went there, but I think they actually receive a little bit more of that business now that and they will have like the t-shirts with all of the diving photos, like Nico's photos on the front. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So just a random, well, not random, but recently there was a pretty big earthquake. Were you in the area, or I'm sure you'd felt it because it was pretty much all through Myanmar and Thailand. Were you diving? Yeah. Or I know there was a team in the water. I don't know who exactly was in the water.
So I was there. I was not part of the team that was in the water. So we had 3 teams planning to dive that day. So the first team was installing the decompression habitat. Like it's 1,000-liter water container, basically, that you fill with air, stick to the ceiling. So when you're doing decompression, you can get your face out of the water and sit down and like eat a candy bar or something. And they were the ones actually in the water when the earthquake struck. We were in the car driving up the mountain, and I actually didn't feel it at all. Maybe because I was in the car, but we didn't really realize. And then when we got to the mine, there was another team in the second mine, not the one that we were diving in, but there's a second one further on. And they took a video of the water was moving, there was waves in the mine. It's still water. There shouldn't be any waves coming from the mine.
Yeah.
And then the water was creeping up kind of towards the car. So they came back to us and then they showed us the video. We were like, what the hell is going on? And then maybe 10 minutes later, we got the rangers from the complex coming to tell us what had happened and that we weren't allowed to dive for a fairly good reason.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And the guys that were in the water, they said they did feel it, but they didn't understand what it was. They said it was bubbles on their back. They said it was someone was massaging them with the fingers. I don't know that's what they said. It was someone's finger massaging and bubbles on the back. That's what they said it felt like. So
yeah, that's a different way. I haven't been in the water during an earthquake, so I'm sure it's a different sensation for everybody. Just a quick question about the habitats. So obviously, if you put a container, you fill it with air, and you're breathing it in, the air is going to get contaminated. After a amount of time, people breathing in it. How do you filter the air so that it's breathable?
So actually, when you sit inside the habitat, you cannot, especially with the basic ones that we have, you cannot just breathe the air. So you either stay on your open circuit gas and you just breathe from the tank, or you stay on your rebreather.
Oh,
so you're actually just breathing the gas that you still have with you. There are some more advanced ones, with more high-tech filtration systems that scrub out the carbon dioxide and replenish the oxygen so you can breathe. But for these ones that we have, they're just small boxes, and the main benefit of them is to actually get yourself out from the water. So it allows you to warm up. It allows your oxygen metabolization to be a little bit better, and you can take a drink some sugar water or Gatorade or eat a Snickers bar or whatever. But you have to still stay on your rebreather or your regulator to breathe.
So speaking of rebreathers, I feel like that's kind of another natural progression if, people are sticking with the diving and they're moving forward with the diving. Can you tell me a little bit more about your progression into rebreathers and how you Was it challenging for you moving into that sort of diving? Did you find it easy? Just the progression into the closed circuit world?
Yeah, so I did my first try dive. I think it was in 2022 in kind of July time. I was suffering with some health issues at the time, and I couldn't like put a lot of time and effort into actually diving full time. So I was really lucky to actually get a try dive at that time. And I did actually 3 days of try diving with the KISS Sidewinder. And funnily enough, I'd actually bought a KISS Sidewinder already before I'd even tried it. I had just full blind trust in Mikko Pasi, who told me like, yeah, this is the best unit. It looks awesome. It dives awesome. And you're going to love it. I said, yes, okay, sign me up. And I bought one. But, you know, I haven't regretted it at all. It was the best thing I've ever done. The try dive, I kind of fell quite naturally into it. I found it quite straightforward. But that's one of the benefits really about the KISS Sidewinder is it's quite simple, it's easy, and it dives really nicely right from the start. So it took me a few months to actually then get my Mod 1. But honestly, it's the best thing I've done. I absolutely love it. And then, of course, crossing over into CCR overhead was an absolute game changer. Like that allowed me to be involved in way more projects with Bottomlines. I was able to join on the exploration more with Mikko because of the CCR. Like it's just safer to be on the CCR rather than in open circuit. In these mines and caves that haven't been discovered, no one's ever been in there. So you don't know the condition or whether it's going to collapse or fall down with all the bubbles. So it just makes sense to be on CCR. And yeah, I haven't looked back. It was an awesome decision.
Awesome. And have you tried a back mount unit? Is there any interest in trying one out at some point, or a chest mount unit? I know those are quite popular these days.
You know what? I have never dived another rebreather ever, but it's definitely on the cards. Like another good friend and instructor of mine, Klaus Rasmussen, I've been messaging him recently about getting on to try out the JJ and the Triton, just so I have like some reference, you know, and I might even do one of the like entry levels on a couple of the units so I have some frame of reference, because I'm looking towards becoming an instructor on the KISS Sidewinder. Like I've already started the process of that. So I feel like I need to have a little bit of background information and have actually tried going in the water with some other units before I try and convince people that my unit is the best one, you know? Because I really have no reference.
That was going to be another question is, do you mostly dive side mount? But I try to dive side mount as much as possible. Obviously, it's not the case every time. I usually travel to dive. So depending on where I'm going, it just, you know, determines whether I can dive side mount or if I'm just in like a back mount configuration. But I did a try dive on a couple different units, and then I jumped into a side mount unit as well. And was there, I know when I was kind of doing my research, there was kind of, I don't want to say a group of people, that's wrong, but you know, there's different parties or different, you know, factions, whatever you want to call them. But there was a lot of people like, oh, you shouldn't start on a side mount unit. And I almost fell into that, but I ended up getting a side mount unit. Did you hear any arguments on like, oh, you should start on a back mount unit, or was there any issues there?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really heard that much myself personally, but I 100% am aware of that discussion. And it comes from the same people that say that twin set diving is the only way forward and side mount diving is the new thing that only makes sense in cave diving. And it comes from the same thing, right? But side mount diving is massively growing in popularity, for many reasons, not just for cave diving. Like it's such a nice way of diving. So I personally haven't heard that much myself because I think, well, most of the people in my circle, we're all side mount divers. So I don't hear that much backlash about that. But yeah, I think it comes from the same group of people that maybe a little bit more old school, that the back mount units for sure, they're more sturdy, they take you deeper. But the thing is, they're more complicated sometimes. They're more difficult to dive. And when they break, you have to send them for repair. With the Sidewinder, if you break it, it's an O-ring or a cable that needs replacing. And that's pretty much it. My Sidewinder got crushed underneath the Toyota Hilux for 3 hours and didn't come out with a scratch. So tell me my side mount unit is useless. Yeah.
So what happened? It got crushed? I'm curious. I'm a little bit curious about the story.
The story is kind of well known amongst people that follow us, Bottomline Projects at least. We were on an exploration mission up near right up in the north by the Myanmar border in the northeast of the country, like 17 hours away from Koh Tao. We got into a bit of trouble with our pickup truck. It was in a mine that was a really dodgy road, like super muddy, big boulders everywhere. And long story short, we ended up actually flipping the truck off of the road into a ditch. Luckily, no serious injuries. Well, the passenger had like a few stitches in his head, but no serious injuries, just a little bit of hurt pride and lost dignity. And we learned some lessons for sure. But yeah, my Sidewinder was in a duffel bag in the back. And when the car flipped, it got crushed underneath the truck in between the riverbed and the truck itself. And it was there. I was looking at it, just thinking, oh gosh, I don't want to open that bag. But when I opened the bag, like everything was exactly how I left it. There was not a scratch on it. And then I actually sucked a negative and it still held negative pressure. So I was pretty happy with it.
That is awesome. And then my other question that I wanted to ask is, so obviously with these remote explorations, it brings on some challenging moments, I'm sure, you know, flipping a car being one of them, especially if you're kind of out in the middle of nowhere there, you know, there's, yeah. I'm sure it's tough to get the resources to help roll it back over, or I don't know if it was like a manpower thing, but can you talk about a little bit of the challenges faced on, I mean, just a exploration project in general is challenging, but then now you're adding the remoteness, being far away from just everyday, not needs, but just kind of like the conveniences of having things right by you. Can you talk a little bit about challenging aspects of projects?
For sure, like we really have to plan as much as we can in advance, which is sometimes really, really challenging. We run a big shop with a lot of people and a lot of people doing tech. So we have to often fight over the tanks, over the oxygen bottles, over the oxygen gas. So we really have to kind of try and plan day by day when we have an expedition coming up. We try and organize as soon as possible what we need. It's always difficult, like especially if we have deeper dives, then we need to mix, for example, trimix and fill up as much oxygen as possible and prepare deco tanks and all of this, which often in the field is a lot more tricky. So we try and prepare as much as possible in the shop before we go. In some places, we are able to get big tanks of oxygen, for example, so we can mix stuff out there. But it is always a little bit tricky, and you never know, especially in a completely new place, you never know what's going to be available. So the more we can take with us, the better. And we always try to kind of figure out an emergency action plan. We have a good friend of ours, Maxime, who works with Dan and the Hyperbaric Chamber Network here in Koh Tao, and is also a good friend of mine in Koh Tao Divers. He's always really, really good at helping us to prepare like evacuation plans and giving us all the local numbers. He has like this satellite phone, which ironically enough, during that crash, he lost. Of course. And also he was the one that was injured. Like he's the dive medic and we managed to injure him. Like you can't make that part up. Right? Yeah, exactly. So the dive medic was the injured one and we didn't have the satellite phone because he lost it. Anyway, but we do try. It doesn't always work out, of course. It's one of the kind of funny things that we always say. We call Bottomline Projects, but we also call ourselves Bottomline Project Problems. We never have like everything we do, we always achieve what we want, but it never goes 100% smoothly. Like there's always some hurdle to climb, or we break something, or something gets lost, or something like that. Something's not working, or we run into a permit problem. We're not allowed to go to where we wanted, even though we're packed and ready to leave. Like it's always exciting though.
Yeah,
but for sure,
sure,
going to these remote locations, it really does add a level of risk because, like I said, you never know who's going to be around, what you can source. So I think as much prior planning needs to be done as possible to make sure you know like hospital numbers, emergency numbers, what you can source, where the nearest places are, and all of that stuff. But yeah, it's challenging sometimes.
And so when you're bringing most of your equipment, is it just like a caravan of 3 or 4 different vehicles, or is it trying to just pack as much as possible into one vehicle? Like how many vehicles and how many people are usually heading to these projects? It
really depends on the size of the project. Usually it's just one pickup truck that will go. Luckily now we're all on CCR, so we don't have to take hundreds of tanks. Like we all just need to take our bailout tanks, but we don't need to take like 10 tanks for side mount or whatever. Usually we have a small compressor, like a travel compressor. We have a booster as well, so we don't have to take too much oxygen. Like we just get the oxygen there sometimes, or we take a big J tank of our own. Usually, obviously, there's about 3 or 4 people normally. If we need more, then we have a second car, but usually it's only one. In the early days, we didn't have the car, and we actually just piled everything onto a minivan. The first expeditions that we did, like we hired this minivan driver who drove us all the way from Chumphon up to Kanchanaburi, which is like 12 hours of driving. And then we arrived in the mine at like 4 a.m. and made him drive through the jungle. And this guy must have been honestly so confused about what we were doing. And then we just get out of the minivan at 4 a.m. and just carry all of the tanks and just disappear off into the jungle, like talking about elephants and stuff. And he was just there like, what have I been hired to do? That was the early days.
Oh, that's
now
funny.
we have a car. Now we have a car.
Just moving on up in the world. That's a plus. That's definitely a plus. So you'd mentioned that you started the process to become a CCR instructor. Can you tell me a little bit about that? What is involved with that?
So it's a long and difficult and expensive path. So I have more than enough hours now. I feel like I'm kind of at the point where I'm ready to actually take the next step. I've been assisting Mikko already because obviously he works with me. Well, I work with him and in the shop. And whenever he has a course, I try to hang around, and I've assisted him on a couple of courses. So basically what's required is you need to do like 3 or 4 assists with at least 2 different instructors. You need to, it's beneficial for you to do an instructor workshop with Patrick Whitman, and then you have to get evaluated. So you get evaluated teaching a whole Mod 1 course. So you have to find students, figure out a time when Patrick is free, find a country that we can go to or he can come to, and then get evaluated. So I'm kind of halfway through that process. I've done a few assists now. I've done the instructor workshop. So I just finished that a few weeks ago. Patrick was here. I had a great time actually with him. He was here during the mine camp a few months ago. Then we went to Singapore together. For ADEX, he was there, and then he came straight back to Koh Tao. So he was around for a couple of weeks in Koh Tao. So that was really awesome. The guy is just a fountain of knowledge and experience. Like, it's incredible to spend time with him. So I did the workshop. So next I need to do another assist somewhere. I'm hoping to go to the Philippines at some point to assist Matt Reed. Or I go to Mexico, which is a bit of an expensive one, but it is what it is. I have the drive, and it's just one of those paths that you can't shortcut. You need to put in the money and you need to put in the work, and then when it pays off, hopefully it pays off, because people pay thousands of pounds or euros for these courses. So I'm investing at the moment into my future. That's how I'm thinking of it.
No, for sure. And I think that is a solid way to look at it too, because it is not an easy path and it is not an inexpensive path. So definitely, no matter how you're going about it, if you're getting into it to learn or teach, it's definitely a process. So that's awesome that you've started that journey. You're in the middle of the journey. And so Patrick he has been on the podcast, and I do have to say he's probably one of the most motivational people I have ever met. Like, it was, I think that was like literally my first question for him was like, how do you stay so motivated all the time? Because I'm like, teach me how to build up that motivation. Speaking of ADEX, you gave, I want to say, I know at least one presentation, maybe a couple presentations. How was that whole process of public speaking? Is that something that you're used to? Was that new to you? How was that whole the whole ADEX experience for you?
I mean, it was amazing to be there, but I have to be honest, like, it was the first time I'd ever done anything like that in that kind of setting. Like, yes, I've grew up kind of as an actor and in performing arts and stuff. So performing on stage is not something that I'm new to, but performing on stage is very, very different to public speaking, because you learn the lines, you know what to say. No one's going to throw curveball questions at you, and you just kind of learn and you know what to do. But this was the first time actually public speaking, and I was absolutely petrified, especially before the first time going up on stage. Like, it was horrifying, actually. And everyone kept saying, like, but the whole first row is full of your mates. And I'm like, yes, but do you know who my mates are? My mates are you, Miko, and Patrick, and all of these people that are hugely more experienced than I am. And that doesn't even make it better. It makes it worse sometimes. I'd rather talk to a bunch of strangers that have no idea who I am. But it did turn out to be good. It was useful to have Miko there, who's involved in half of the stories I was telling. So I can like look at him and play off his reactions and laugh a little bit and look at my friends. And my boyfriend was there as well in the front row, Pasi. So he just made me feel more calm. And after the first one, I felt a little bit better. In all honesty, the worst part was the panel discussion. Because at least I knew my presentation. I knew what I was saying. But the panel discussion, I was just like sweating the entire time. Anyway, yeah, it was interesting. I'm glad I did it. I will happily do it again. But yeah, it was interesting experience.
Okay, I wanted to ask if there was any plans to do it in the future, because I know some people kind of catch that bug of I haven't done any public speaking ever, so I think it would be quite interesting, and I could see how it could be quite nerve-wracking to, especially I definitely think that would be worse if you're speaking to strangers that don't really know, then it's a little bit easier, but it's almost like giving your presentations in the IDC, like your peers are waiting with questions to hit you with, just to kind of see you fumble a little bit because it's funny, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so. And that's exactly Patrick's motive in the front row. Like when I finished and she asked like any questions, his hand was like 100 miles an hour up into the sky. I'm like, oh no, what? He didn't throw me off. Like he asked useful questions, but yeah, it was a little bit nerve-wracking for sure.
That's funny. You're like looking past his hand.
Yes, like no, sorry, you're not there. I think that the biggest thing for me that made it like a little bit nerve-wracking was because I still feel like I had this kind of like imposter syndrome, you know, like I still feel like I'm very much at the beginning of my career, and I was surrounded there by, you know, veterans in the industry. And I kind of like, sometimes I feel like, what am I doing here amongst these huge names? And then everyone's saying like, well, you have interesting stories to tell, so don't worry about it. Like, just tell the stories. And that made me feel better. But sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, I was like just looking to my left and my right, surrounded by these incredible names in the industry. And there was little me like telling my stories. But I think it went really well, actually. And I got good compliments about it. Like, I presented well. I came off nice and good. So hopefully I get invited back. Maybe not. I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. I'm looking forward. So I was able to catch ADEX this year. I hadn't caught it, I think 2022 was the last time I was there, and I'm hoping to go again next year. It's always a fun experience to just be able to kind of go and you know, meet people that, you know, for me, like I was able to kind of meet people that have been on the podcast and see some old friends and meet new people. And it's always, I really do enjoy the shows and just the atmosphere and vibe that it creates. So I look forward to, there's another one coming up in June in Malaysia. So I'll be going to that one. And Malaysia's, you know, I'm sure you kind of maybe agree, maybe not agree. But I mean, obviously, like the diving community is small in general, and then when you have, you know, I'm sure the Thai dive community is pretty small compared to the actual world diving community. I feel the same way in Malaysia; it's pretty small. So once you kind of meet a few people, it's kind of like every time you go back, you're seeing the same faces. You know, new conversations with old friends is always an amazing thing.
Yeah, it was super nice because I'd actually never been to an ADEX before. I went to the Thai Dive Expo, TDEX, a few years back, but I'd never been to the bigger one. So I met a lot of new people there, which was super, super nice. And then obviously I was surrounded by so many friends. And I actually just spent the entire time almost at the Tech Talk stage because like 80% of the speakers on the Tech Talk stage were my friends, like people that I knew. So it was really, really awesome to actually sit amongst those people and listen to their stories and then also listen to new people and meet new people. So yeah, I would love to go back again some point soon.
Awesome. Well, I have one last question for you before I let you go. I usually like to end it on some sort of advice question. And earlier we were speaking about making that transition, making a big move from kind of your hometown, the place that you grew up, or you know, I don't know if that's where you grew up, but I'm assuming that kind of area, and moving across the world. What is the biggest piece of advice that you could give to somebody either thinking about it, thinking about making that move or who is about to make that move?
I think you really need to have 100% commitment into what you're doing. Like, you cannot half-ass it because it's such a big step. Like, and if you don't put 100% of what you're doing into it, then it's not going to work out. You really need to, I think, just be 100% clear about your goal and what you want to achieve, and then just throw everything that you have into it and don't look back.
Those are amazing words of advice. Naomi, thank you very, very much for coming on to the podcast. I really appreciate it. It was amazing to hear about your journey, the stories that you have, and I definitely look forward to your next presentation at a dive show. I will definitely make sure that I am able to catch it. I was not able to catch the one at 8X, so next time I will have to be one of the listeners in the crowd. So thank you very much for coming on to the podcast today.
Okay, great. I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for having me. It's been super fun. Thank you so much.
Off-gassing, a scuba podcast.